In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make freeze-dried raspberry rhubarb. I will show you how I make homemade raspberry Jell-O. The result is a very kind of a sweet and sour, flavorful snack. I've had several people try this and they really liked it. You don't have to make the homemade Jell-O. You can use regular Jell-O to do this, and they do have dye-free options out there that are available. I highly recommend going that route just to avoid the dye, but however you do it, I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's my rhubarb plant. It has gone to seed. It got away from me, so now I need to cut the stalks down, and I also need to harvest some of the rhubarb. When you harvest rhubarb, you want to take a hold of it, pull it back, and then pull it. It's better to do it that way than to cut it. I'll do a few more. And you don't want to take all of the rhubarb. Any of the smaller pieces like this, you could just leave in here. But you definitely want to leave some of the rhubarb. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all these, and then we'll cut them flower stalks out. The reason you don't want to pull all the leaves is because the plant needs some stalks left on it for photosynthesis and for energy production. For the stalks, you can't just push them back and pull them because they're too stiff. So I have this big knife here, and I'm going to get behind it. Well, that didn't go as planned, but I got it out. see how big they are. This is a good inch, probably more like 1.25 inches in diameter. So we're gonna go ahead and get the rest of them cut out of there. There, the plant looks a little bit pitiful now, but not too bad. It will come back. It won't be long. It'll be nice and full again, and we can harvest some more rhubarb. If you let it go though, and you don't keep it picked, you're probably not going to get too much more of a harvest throughout the year. And here is the rhubarb I got off, and there's the stalks. For today, I'm just going to chop off the ends, and then I'll chop off the leaves. Rhubarb leaves can be safely added to a compost pile, although they contain oxalic acid, which can be toxic if ingested. This acid breaks down during the composting process and is not absorbed by the plants, so the resulting compost is safe to use in your garden. So I'll cut them all off, and then I'll throw them in my compost pile. Some people even use them to lay around the base of their plants so that it helps keep the weeds from coming up. So that's another option. The plan is to get these all cut up, and then tomorrow, while it's a rainy day, I'll chop them all up and get started turning them into freeze-dried raspberry rhubarb. It hardly looks like I have very much rhubarb now that I've cut it off of the leaves, but every little bit counts. And look at the big pile of leaves I have for the compost pile. So I'll get these washed up, put them in the refrigerator, and tomorrow I'll get these chopped up. Okay, so it's time to chop these up. Some of these have some weird stuff on the edge, so I'm just going to peel that off. All right, I think we got all the weird stuff off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice these so that they're smaller, because I'll be marinating these in Jell-O, and I want to make sure that they're small enough so that the marinade can get through them easier. And I want them to be more bite-sized. Some of these smaller pieces, like this one here, that would be okay to just leave it that size. But some of these are pretty big. I think that one will be okay. And so far these all look good, but if you come across any like the great big ones, this one is fine. But if you come across these big ones and it's like all like pithy, you'll want to toss them because It probably wouldn't taste very good. And the texture would be kind of weird too. I was debating on if I wanted to use the food processor to chop these, but I really feel like it's not going to take long at all to chop through these. Kind of line them up here, and then take my chef knife and chop away. I'm just doing like 1/2-inch pieces. You don't want them too big so that because you want the marinade to get through them, like I was saying earlier. All right, we got a nice big pile of rhubarb. So I like to get this done first because whenever I make my Jell-O, I don't want it to set up. I want to get these in the Jell-O while it's hot so it like absorbs into the rhubarb better. The next step will be to make up our Jell-O. Okay, now it's time to make the Jell-O. And I use this beef gelatin powder to make my Jell-O with. And I wrote the recipe here on the top just so I wouldn't forget. Otherwise I have to look it up every time. But we need 4 cups of juice. So what I did is I grabbed some raspberries out of the freezer, a couple bags of them, and I'm gonna put it in the strainer. And then we can strain out all of the seeds. It won't matter if some of them get in there because basically I'm just making some Jell-O for the rhubarb to sit in and to take on the flavor of the raspberries. Grab a big spoon to kind of push it through. So I'll get this all pushed through and move on to the next step. I got the raspberries all pressed out, and you can use regular Jell-O. It takes a little while to press the berries out, but I feel like it's worth it. I did add a little bit of water to this to help it extract, but as you can see, it's still going to be pretty strong. Now we'll take 3/4 of a cup of this juice, and we're going to add 2 tablespoons of gelatin to that juice. And we'll mix it up really good. You want to make sure you mix it until it's completely mixed in and dissolved. It takes a little time to do that. So you're stirring this to combine it, and then we're going to set it aside for about 5 minutes while we heat up the juice. And while we do that, the gelatin will thicken up significantly during this time. And it should be very thick and grainy looking. So we'll set that aside. So then we'll move over here and get the remaining juice in a pan and get that heating up. I'll turn this on medium high, and I'll get the rest of our raspberry juice in here. While we're heating this up, our gelatin is blooming. That's what they call it when it's sitting there resting. So we're going to heat this over medium-high heat until it starts steaming. It doesn't need to come to a boil or a simmer, but it should be very hot. Okay, so our liquid is hot. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of honey to this. You can use any kind of sweetener that you like. I'll get that dissolved in there. This is what the gelatin base looks like. So it's really thick. And we're gonna put that in this hot juice. And we're gonna whisk it in really good. So you'll wanna whisk this together until it's completely dissolved. And at this point, your stove will be turned off. And it's very important that you whisk this until it's completely dissolved. It smells really good. See, we don't need food coloring. That is a nice deep red, rich color. All right, I think I've mixed it enough to where it should all be dissolved. Now I'll grab my rhubarb. I'm gonna see if it'll all fit in this measuring cup. Yep, it fit. Now we'll see if we have enough space for that Jell-O. And you'll want to try to pour this over while it's still pretty hot, because that will help it to soak into the rhubarb. Perfect. We got enough to cover all of the rhubarb. So I'll let this sit on the counter for about 4 hours or so while it cools down, it marinates, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and let it sit overnight. And then tomorrow I'll pull it out and put it on a tray and have it ready so it can be freeze dried. Our rhubarb mixture is now ready to put on our freeze dryer trays. Okay, I have my freeze dryer tray here. I think I can fit this whole bowl on this tray. I did sample this. It's not quite as sweet as store-bought Jell-O. So you could do one of two things. You can either add more sugar, more honey to your original gelatin mixture, or you can sprinkle it with sugar after you get done. And that's what I'm going to do. It's not like it needs to be very sweet, so I'm just gonna lightly sweeten it. So I'll spread this out on here. All right, now I'm gonna sprinkle the top with a little bit of sugar. Not a lot, but just a little. This would remind you a little bit of like the sweet and sour candy. So it would have a raspberry flavor and a little bit of sour from that rhubarb. There, I think that will be pretty good. So now I'm gonna put the lid on here and I'll put it in the freezer to get it frozen, and then whenever I have enough trays, then I can put this in the freeze dryer and get it freeze dried. Because this process takes a while, before I can freeze dry the rhubarb and give it a try, I decided to pull out some of the rhubarb that I've already done. So with this particular batch, I used a strawberry Jell-O, and I just used the conventional Jell-O. But this gave me an idea to give this a try making homemade Jell-O. And now that we're done with the raspberry rhubarb batch that we just finished, I am super excited to give that a try also. I feel like it's gonna have a lot of flavor. It was not as sweet, so again, as I mentioned before, you may want to add more sugar. It depends, because some people, they like more of the sour, but yet flavorful. But here I have a little baggie. This is how I typically package up my snacks, because it's just a nice small size and it's great for gifts too. So let's open it up and give it a try. And this is what they look like. So let's sample these and see how they taste. They have a very strong strawberry flavor and then kind of a crunch, and you get a little bit of that sour. These are a little bit sweeter than the ones I'm making now, but the flavor punch is there. It makes such a nice, healthy snack and a great alternative to a lot of the candy that's out there today. I highly recommend giving this a try. And if you don't have a freeze dryer, you could always dehydrate these, or you could just put them in the freezer and flash freeze them so that they break apart easy, and then you can just reach in and grab out whatever you want whenever you want a snack. So if you give these a try, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. Bye for now.